After violating the ceasefire over 100 times, Israel has now cut off the electricity, and they are blocking all food aid trucks from entering Gaza as they continue their campaign of extermination. This is exactly what I predicted and what I feared after a ceasefire was announced a few weeks ago, that Donald Trump would allow Israel to violate the ceasefire and continue their campaign of extermination. So once again, Israel is using starvation as a tool of war, which is a war crime. Cutting off electricity as a form of collective punishment is a war crime. The fact that Israel can block electricity and block food from entering Gaza proves that Gaza is 100% occupied by Israel and is an open-air prison.
I'm talking about the innocent children, more of whom will now die inevitably because power's been completely cut off in Gaza, which led me just to ask, I don't think Israel should have that power to do that.
Israel doesn't want that power.
100% correct.
Israel shouldn't feed them or give them electricity or anything else.
Allow me,
Where are the Egyptians? Where are the Qataris? Where are the
Palestinians?
The occupation of Gaza is something that Zionists often lie about, because if they admit that Israel is occupying Gaza, that gives legitimacy to Palestinian resistance, because international law enshrines the right to engage in armed resistance against an occupying force. But it's also very important to remember that the creation of Israel by the UN was also contingent on the creation of a Palestinian state, something that was actively and unapologetically blocked by Israel over the last few decades. This is why people who condemn Palestinian resistance are youthful idiots of the Zionists. The only thing that Palestinians have is resistance after the international community failed them.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family. Welcome to another edition of RBN Live. And I predicted it, and we are seeing it come to pass, how Donald Trump is just another extension of the George W. Bush administration. He's just another George W. Bush Republican. The same way that the Biden administration was, what was it, the 10th term of Ronald Reagan. We're seeing Donald Trump work on behalf of the imperialist regime. We're seeing a brand new Patriot Act being implemented to protect Donald Trump and the state of Israel from the war crimes they're currently sponsoring. These are not conspiracy theories. Collective punishment is a war crime. It is a crime according to international law and United States law to arm war criminals. So when you see the Trump administration cracking down on people who they call terrorist sympathizers, it's people who are protesting the United States that's calling out our criminal government for breaking their own laws. These are not laws that I wrote. These are the laws that the United States claim to uphold, the Leahy's Law. And I have a lot of respect and admiration for all the student protesters, but you guys understand that their asks and demands are not even that radical. Once again, I know they're not a diss and not a competition, but they're not even that radical. They are essentially saying, I got Mario. We have a great guest join us. I see you. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. I will introduce you here very soon. You understand that in Columbia and at Harvard and Yale, the student organizers was organizing so their college would divest from Israel. That was their demands. They're not like full-blown Hamas supporters like I am. You know what I mean? They're just saying, hey, man, there's a genocide going on over there, and I don't think my school should be investing in a genocidal apartheid state. And now our state, the United States, is labeling these dissidents as terrorists for calling out the United States regime. You guys see the opposition. Now, I introduce my guest on this thought. You guys see the pathetic opposition, the Democratic Party, where Chuck Schumer, he put out a statement smearing the student organizers as anti-Semites. He's yeah, I agree. Donald Trump, I agree that they are anti-Semites. I just don't think you should arrest them. That's the opposition. They're so busy fighting to uphold institutions like the CIA and giant government spending that they are not opposing Trump on the most blatant criminal actions, the biggest betrayals of MAGA, because they were in on it. Anyway, let's get my guest in here. I'm very interested in hearing his perspective on this. We have an amazing geopolitical analyst, historian, and journalist. Thank you for joining us from CounterPoint, China. The first time on RBN. Great to meet you, Mario Cavallo.
Nick, I couldn't be happier to be here. You've already got me riled up. I don't need my coffee. And we know what the issues are. We're fighting the masters of the universe. But I want to say to let everyone know, I'm coming from a rather unique place here on planet Earth. I'm up in northeast region of China in Shenyang, the capital of Liaoning province. I'm here for the best reason in the world. This is the hometown of my darling wife. She still tolerates me after almost 20 years now, so I'm a very lucky man.
Yeah, you are very lucky, because I always talked about how I want to visit China. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you lived in China for quite a while now, a few decades. How is it? Because it's something, because I don't hide the fact that, because I don't think there's anything wrong with us admiring other countries. I admire what China has done. You know what I mean? And there's Americans who think that's weird, but I admire how they organize their society. I'm not saying they're perfect, but as someone who admired them from the outside in, I would love to visit, learn the language. So I'm very curious. I didn't have this plan, but I would love to ask you about your time in China.
I fully understand. And so what I'll do is, and everything you said is absolutely right. You know, it's so funny. Before I even make my statement about China, I want to ask you a question, Nick. Should Americans be proud? Should Italians be proud that they're Italian? Should French be proud that they're French? Should China be proud that they're Chinese? Should countries enjoy their sovereign borders and enjoy having their sovereign culture? Who would say no? I don't think anybody should say no to that, right? I mean, if you're Italian in Italy, do you want to ruin your Italian history and heritage and culture? Would any sane Italian want to do that? I don't think so, right? And it's the same for China, except in the case of China, of course, you know, you've got the two original civilizations. You've got the European continent, right, and the Asian continent, and then there's, of course, way down in the south, larger than them all is the African continent. I mean, these are the origins of civilization, not the 200-year-old United States, who's been just ever since they were formed on war and violence, and basically they're Europeans. They're just so violent. They're just so violent. I mean, it's just unbelievable how violent they are. Whereas the Asian continents, and this is not the Asian continent and all the Asian countries, starting with China and all of Southeast Asia, if you look throughout history, this is the peaceful. We're the peaceful side of the world. We're the side of the world that wants to get stuff done without slaughtering endless millions of people, right? So when you made your brief comment so far about thinking that, well, you should admire the good things that China does. Well, yeah, and that's the understatement of the century, and that is the point, that it is China's century. Whether anybody knows it or likes it or not is irrelevant. The 1400s through the 1800s was whose century? And that was multiple centuries. Whose time was that? Through the 1700s, it was Europe's time. and it was amazing expansion and colonization and the Renaissance and everything wonderful, but it was also accompanied by endless violence and slaughter of innocent civilians colonizing in their imperialistic dreams, right? And then after Europe went ahead and they applied the slaughter to themselves, idiots that they are. They decimated their own continent, World War I and World War II. I mean, that's brilliant. You're mad at your neighbor. Let's just decimate the neighborhood. I got 6 buildings around me. Imagine that 6 countries. Imagine the 6 buildings. We're all mad at each other, and let's just go to war and we'll level all 6 buildings and destroy ourselves. I mean, that's what Europe did in World War I, World War II. I mean, they're idiots and they're violent. And they're violent idiots. That's the worst part, right? And from the ashes of World War II and the Marshall Plan, the 19th, so this is the 19th up to the 19th century was Europe's time, Europe's rise across the world, and then from the ashes of the World War II came the United States, and that was the 20th century. That's the United States century. And of course it was, and it was miraculous and amazing and wonderful in many ways what America did. That story, the story of my Italian grandparents' family who immigrated to America, the country they were going to be so proud of. We are Americans now. They fled Mussolini and the violence in Europe. And then, sure enough, they come to America. And then in the end, America's just as bad, if not even worse, right? So then it's but great dreams, great, wonderful, amazing things happened with respect to the forming of America. But it was also based on and rooted in enormous amounts of endless violence. And that was America's century. Now, America's century has obviously come to an end, just like the Roman Empire and everything else. And it always does. And now the 21st century, and I'm quoting Jim Rogers here, Switzerland, not Switzerland, Jim Rogers, famous biker hedge fund guy. This is what it was. The 19th century was Europe's, the 20th century was America's, and this century, the 21st century, is China's. And now I'll say it. China is now the largest, safe, stable, successful, capable, civil, normal, and peaceful global superpower ever in the history of the world. It's the first country in the world to become a global superpower without slaughtering millions of innocent civilians of other countries in order to make that happen.
That's a great point.
Thank you. And we could go through that. I gave you a framework, Nick, where you could take that big, fat, juicy statement that I just made, and we could break it down step by step. It's factually true, because I don't come out in public and say things that make me look like a fool. I don't come out and state opinion. China is now the largest, safe, stable, successful, capable, civil, peaceful, normal society and peaceful country on the planet. They are. Factually, it's demonstrable. If something is demonstrable, it's apodeictic. That's a Greek word that I learned a long time ago, about 2 years ago, as I was writing my 3rd book on China. And that word apodeictic comes from the Greek, and it means known beyond dispute. That's what it means. So I can talk to you about those things about China, not my opinion. The things that we know that are beyond dispute. And wow, there's a list of things where the Western, I'll call it the US-led, I don't know if you agree with this, I'll call it the US-led propaganda machine, because it's the Western propaganda machine, but the US is the head of it. The US, it's US. They're the masters of the universe. They're the greatest at propaganda than anyone ever in the history of planet Earth. It's like everybody in the government has got the communication persuasion skills, because they all went to a freaking Tony Robbins seminar and learned how to do it.
Even Putin said that. Even Putin said no one has propaganda that beats the American. And I talk to people on the Red Note. Like on Red Note, there are a lot of people in China that thinks that Americans live better than we actually do. But go ahead, continue your thought, Mario.
Well,
I love it.
We could go on forever. I mean, talking about Red Note, the Xiao Hongshu thing. I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot, right? I mean,
yeah, I loved it. I had a great time.
They opened up. I think probably, I don't know how many million Americans joined Xiao Hongshu, and they were able to, because Xiao Hongshu was one of China's social media. See, Americans think Chinese can't and don't. Here's a fable number one. Okay, Chinese can't and don't criticize their country. People actually believe that, right?
That's
So,
crazy.
and how do you know that? Well, I've never seen or heard them do it.
How will you know?
Well, how would you know? They communicate with each other in Mandarin. Do you write and speak and read Mandarin? No. Okay, and so what social media app are you on? Well, I'm on free Twitter. That's, right? I'm on free Twitter. No, you're not. You're being constantly censored. They've automated it with an algorithm. Yep. You're being constantly censored. You're in the least free country and place in the whole wide world. I got more freedom to do anything here in China than you do in the West. And when I tell people that, they freak out.
And Mario, on that thought, I shared something on Zhangzhou Shu. I struggle to pronounce it, but it's a base
on Zhangzhou.
Yeah, Red No HHS. Yeah, I tried my best, but I had a post that went many viral on there where I shared the Chinese social credit system, and I shared what the United States say about it. I posted a text,
and they all go, what?
Translated to Mandarin. They was like, "What are you guys talking about?
What are you even talking about? We live here, and you're telling us that we have a social credit system, and we live here, and we're telling you." Huh? What are you talking about? We don't have a social credit system. What do you and they say, oh no, we don't believe you. So imagine it, right? It's to say, well, okay, you think you know about China, you've never lived here, you don't know anything about it. And I live here 25 years and I've written 3 books about China, and I have a Chinese family and a mother-in-law who doesn't speak a wing English. So I'm going to tell you all about China. Oh no, I don't believe you. What is that? This is crazy.
They believe the CIA instead.
So in America, they believe the CIA instead. Wait, we didn't know. We didn't know. The good thing that came out of there's no good thing, but the good things is that the truth came out because of the extremity of the Zionist genocide. Right? Because of the extremity of the Zionist genocide, so much truth came out. I didn't know. Did you know before, say, a year or 2 years ago, how deeply true it was that the CIA was feeding and managing and controlling mainstream legacy media in the United States? I didn't know that. I didn't think it was that the CIA.
It's funny. I covered it on my show.
Pervasive in American life.
I covered it on my show before. They will openly admit it now. Like it was a long time ago where Nicole Wallace, she just straight up admitted, like, I had a camp meeting session with some former CIA person where they coached me on how to talk about certain issues. I'm like, she just said that live on air, guys. She just said that the CIA coached her on how she talked about foreign policy issues.
Yeah.
So to your point, Mario, they don't even really hide it no more, and they start cut out the middlemen now, where they would like directly bring on CIA intelligence officers to explain them the news. So they don't even hide the fact that they do that.
Yeah, and you're killing me here because now they're not hiding this sick, malevolent, evil Zionist agenda, and now it's just out. It's just out, and we knew from the beginning. I'm apolitical when it comes to America. There's 1,000 things to notice and criticize about the left and the Democrats. There's 1,000 things on the right to notice and criticize. Overall, I'm a very conservative person. China is more Christian, family-oriented society than the West would ever and could ever be. Because actually the original teachings, notice I'm saying not religion, but the original teachings of a really wisdom-filled guy named Jesus are pretty much identical to Buddha and identical to Krishna and identical.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. So it's just the principles of life, and the principles of life are family is the center. And the Chinese government, who in China, the evil Chinese government,
Chinese Communist Party.
Family is the root of society and the foundation of society, and marriage is the foundation of society, and family is the foundation of society. And when your parents get old, I was going to curse, you freaking take care of them.
Yeah,
I mean that's quote Christian. It's not Christian. It's just virtue. It's the proper virtues of life. and they don't change through history. They don't change. And when you deviate from those, you get a mess. You get a mess. And that's here, and that's China. And that's China, period. End of story. And
we have a Christian Zionist in the United States.
They are the number one. Do you think? To me, they are the number one of hypocrites. They don't have a clue.
They're the worst.
You can't be. You can't be a Christian Zionist. It's not possible. You can't say I'm a Christian and I support Zionism. It's not. If you are, you're not a Christian. You can't possibly think that. Jesus wouldn't lay a violent finger on anyone. Neither would Buddha. No good person would lay a violent finger on anyone. And you're a Christian Zionist and you stand with Israel. Oh, this stuff. Oh my God! And it's in the halls of Congress. Okay, so I started this part of what I've been ranting about, saying I'm apolitical. I'm against what's wrong. And how can you respect? How can you respect either side of the political system in the United States, and even how they've extended it to the EU? I can't. How can you just be one-sided? Oh, I hate Trump. He's all the problems. Excuse me, man. America's problems began basically you could say, well, the history of violence has been constant, okay? But the modern history of violence began 70 years ago, post-World War II. They dropped the bombs on Japan. Even they dropped the bombs on Japan. Not enough to drop the first one when Japan was already surrendering. Japan was already surrendering. Why did you drop a nuclear bomb on Japan? To send a message to the Russians.
Yep.
That's literally what they did. And just to be sure, violent lunatics that they are, they dropped the second bomb to wipe out another 200,000 innocent civilians, even though Japan was already surrendering. And then they followed this up 2, 3, 4 short years later by, and nobody knows this, and I want to talk about this later, Nick, my Korean War. I've written and shot already a Korean War documentary. The United States went into Korean Peninsula, and this is what marked the modern time of American violence, of U.S. government violence. They went in, and you want to talk about, you freaking out about the genocide in Gaza because they've so far, in front of our faces, wiped out 200,000 innocent civilians, including 50,000 children, and you're horrified. They did that exact thing in the Korean Peninsula to the tune of 3 million in 3 years. That's what the United States-led United Nations forces did, decimating the Korean Peninsula. And nobody on planet Earth knows it better than me. I know it better than any historian. I'm not bragging, because China asked me to play MacArthur in the TV. I do some acting work, and I played General MacArthur in the TV series, in the movie called Crossing the Yalu River. And I live 3 hours here driving to Dandong at the Yalu River, the border of North Korea. And I see the broken bridge where they bombed the bridge when MacArthur, in his insanity, declared, we're going to destroy China once and for all. And everybody in the press conference, this is back in 1951, and everybody at the press conference was like, what? You're going to attack China, General MacArthur? And President Truman was like, holy God, the man's insane. And they fired him. Truman fired him and replaced him. And that war ended as what? Same as Afghanistan 70 years later, ended in a stalemate that led nowhere. Same as Ukraine. You can only give Trump credit for saying that he wants to end Ukraine, because it's just an endless death of men for no reason at all. But he won't end it in Zion, based on some biblical nonsense that Jews are chosen above everybody else. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's disgusting.
Yeah, and I love how you explain the Korean War, because I've been on a mission to help decolonize the mind of my fellow Americans, because pretty much all the history they taught us was straight up nonsense, bullshit. I've been on Twitter like just asking people like, why should I defend the Department of Education? Because we got shitty ass education. Like, for example, we talk about the violence of Americans, where they just like casually mention the genocide of the indigenous Native Americans. They kind of deserved it. We tried.
They don't even understand what they did. Yeah, they don't have a
yeah. And to the point I was trying to make, because they just casually mentioned like, oh man, we tried to rehabilitate them. We couldn't rehabilitate them, so we had to murder them. It is what it is. Like just the casual way they talk about American violence. And regarding the Korean War, like you said, we killed 3 million Koreans, carpet bombed, destroyed the entirety of the infrastructure. I was trying to find a graphic to show you guys. I may find it here. I couldn't find it in time. But they utterly destroyed North Korea when it was on the verge of victory, committed horrific war crimes. And then after they failed to root communism out of the peninsula, we decided to wage economic war against them for decades. And despite that, Americans hate the Koreans?
Who didn't do anything to anybody?
Why do Americans hate the Koreans?
If anything,
I think
America,
we did.
America could be madder at China, because if anything, America should be madder at China than North Korea, because the Americans went in. It was the Americans, and it was U.S.-led UN forces. It was the Americans. The whole thing was the Americans, and Truman did it illegally without congressional approval. So the whole thing was the U.S. And he went into the Korea, and the thing is though is that they went in and they took Seoul. They retook Seoul from the North Koreans, and the South Koreans attacked first. They started the war, and if China hadn't come in 5 months later in October, it started in June. China came in October. If China hadn't come in, then the Western forces would have won. So if you're going to be mad at anybody, be mad at the Chinese. Don't be mad at the North Koreans. They didn't do anything in the first place. You guys just went in and massacred them all. Men, women, and children, villagers, 1 million plus, soldiers, another 500,000. It just goes on and on and on. You know what I'm going to do with your permission, since we're on this Korean documentary thing? I'm trying to find a video clip. I'm trying of my unpublished Korean documentary. Haven't finished it yet, but I went with Fernando Munoz, who's another China expert based in Colombian. He's my cameraman. He went with me to Dandong. I stood in front of the Yalu River Bridge, the bridge that the United States forces bombed during the Korean War. Okay, right on the Yalu River, right on the border of North Korea. I stood there in Dandong, which is here in China, right on the border. It's a little tourist town. This is lovely little hot springs tourist town. And I stood in front of that bridge, and I had written the script after doing all the research, and we shot that documentary, 45 minutes on the Korean War, because it was the South Korea and the United States who undoubtedly started the Korean War, not the North Koreans.
And this is why it shocks me, and this is why it's great that we have people like you who have expertise, who can debunk the Western propaganda. And I've been learning a lot from, and that's why I'm blessed to have people from all over the world, from China, join us on RBN to help rebuke Western propaganda, because I've been learning a lot about this over the last few years. And this is the result of decades of Red Scare, anti-communist, Asian hatred propaganda, where Americans are terrifyingly supportive of nuking civilians in North Korea. So think about how crazy that is, guys. So Americans will say stuff like, well, I actually care about the Korean people. I just don't like the North Korean government. The North Korean government is authoritarian. So my solution is to nuke the civilians. If you actually care about the Koreans, wouldn't you lift the sanctions, call for normalization with North Korea? This is why it's very important for us to normalize our enemies. This is why I say I'm not ashamed to say I appreciate and I admire what China has done, because look at the minds of Americans. Look at what we had to do. What I had to deal with in the heart of the empire, Mario. Americans' views of China hit all-time low. The fuck did China do?
Yeah, and I want to answer you. I want to answer your question. You just asked a really good question. You asked a direct good question. What did China do? What did China do? I want to answer the question.
Yeah.
They did nothing. Okay. So in fact, you know, today's China, because people think of China, they think of the continent, big piece of land. They call it China. And they think that China goes back 1,000 years. And they're like, well, over the years, China did this and China did that. Dude, you're going back 1,000 years. Okay. So when we talk about China, we have to talk about today's a modern China, just like we talk about the United States of America. The United States of America was officially founded as a sovereign nation in 1776, Declaration of Independence, etc. That's America. That's today's America, that land called America with borders. Okay. That China today was formed in 1949. Period. When we talk about China today, we're talking about the People's Republic of China. So I'm going to tell you right now, the People's Republic of China was formed, the government, an official declaration of the People's Republic of China after their own little civil war, just like the United States had their civil war, and the French had their French Revolution, and America had its revolution on, the Battle of Gettysburg. I mean, there's civil war. This war with each other, civil war. China had plenty of civil war. Okay. And after their civil war in the 1930s, and the United States was in there, back in the Nationalist Party, Chiang Kai-shek, and then Mao Zedong and all of his other guys, Peng Dehuai and several others, I can't remember their names right now. They all realized that the Nationalist Party were a bunch of demons. Okay, life under the Nationalist Party under Chiang Kai-shek in the 20s and 30s was miserable. Okay, and the quote communists were what? They were like, you can't, hey, yo, Chiang, President Chiang, you got to stop treating people like this. Key word there, people. Stop treating normal, regular, everyday people like crap. They're living under martial law. You're killing them and putting them in jail for little things. Stop treating people horribly. The People's Party, the People's Party. That's the Communist Party. Mao Zedong. They broke off from Chiang Kai-shek, from the Nationalists, and began the Long March. I know this because I walked the last 2,000 kilometers of the Long March. I walked it with the CCTV film crew. I was invited to do the documentary, to walk along the Long March path, which was 3,000 kilometers from Sichuan to the north of Gansu, Shanxi province in Yan'an. And CCTV called me and said, we're going to do a documentary walking along the path of the Long March back in 1930s when Mao Zedong led the People's Party defected from the Nationalists and started fighting the civil war internally to defeat Chiang Kai-shek. And they did defeat Chiang Kai-shek, and he ran with his tail between his legs to Taiwan. And he fled to Taiwan. And guess what Chiang Kai-shek did when he got to Taiwan? He's kept doing the same brutal government. He ran Taiwan. Why would the United States are backing this guy? This guy was a brutal dictator who ran Taiwan for decades under martial law. Could you imagine, America? Could you imagine if you had lived the last, how old are you, Nick?
30.
You're 30. I got you by double, my friend. I'm going to be 65 in a couple of months, okay? Could you imagine living your entire 30 years, your family, living your entire 30 years of your life, every single day you wake up under martial law? That's what Chiang Kai-shek did after that son of a bitch arrived on Taiwan Island, after Mao Zedong and his guys kicked Chiang's ass and sent him off and he fled to Taiwan just so he could continue being a murderous imperialist son of a bitch dictator. And he ran that island and he treated the Taiwanese like hell. Okay, and the United States is against the Chinese mainland. The Chinese mainland was to protect the people and give the farmland back to the people. Okay, but they're the enemy. How the frick are they the enemy? So a few years later, by 1949, it was official that the Chinese Communist Party of China, official name, officially declared the People's Republic of China, the PRC, 1949. And now I'm going to tell you how many countries the People's Republic of China since 1949 started war with, attacked, and bombed. It's horrible. 0.
But we're supposed to hate them, though, right?
But we're supposed to hate them. What did China do?
And they had the audacity to lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. They had the audacity to invest in their society. Like, once again, as an outsider, I can't say they're perfect, but I'm looking at what they're doing. How can I, as an American, not admire China? How can you, as an American, not admire what China has done? My entire life, Mario, you know what they've done in the United States? They invested in war. We spend trillions of dollars on the Afghanistan war, and China laughs at us. China, there was people on John Drsu, Red Note. They were laughing at us. The Chinese government laughing at us because they said we spent trillions of dollars on the Afghanistan war that resulted with us fighting the Taliban and ending with them running Afghanistan. We fought the Taliban and we ended up with Taliban. Spent trillions of dollars on that, and while we was doing that, China was building high-speed rail. They was building infrastructure, the likes that we never ever seen before. Meanwhile, I look outside, it's dog shit. Like, you know what I'm talking about if you're American? I was in South Carolina. I was on the Bernie campaign years ago, and I used to when I started out as a citizen journalist, I was explaining how the working class is hollowed out. I'm going to these neighborhoods, and the UN explained how many of these like southern red states, and I know this because I live in Missouri. I seen South Carolina. I have brothers and sisters who live in Arkansas. Like the rural working class, they're living in horrific conditions. But they want us. How can you not admire China after seeing how much our government has failed and seeing how much work they have put on their people? Which goes, and I'll pass to you on the start, which leads to why Americans hate China. Because you explained very eloquently how Europe had their time, how America had its time, and now just the idea. And you can make the argument or not on whether this is rooted in white supremacy, but the idea of the Asians being on top, the idea of the Chinese being on top, makes a lot of people in the West who value Western supremacy extremely uncomfortable. And they will never openly admit that. They will never say that. But that is a large driving force. Because why does Europe hate China? Europe is okay with the war criminal America running the world, but not China? And you guys are and we supposed to expect that not ideologically driven in some way. But Mario, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and I have a few more things. This is a great conversation. I'm learning a lot.
The United States, Germany. Hello, Germany. Hey, white people. Really white people, right? I mean, Germans these are really white people.
Yeah, nice.
America blew up your pipeline, blew it up. Come on, but you're mad at China. We must stop the threat of China. It's exactly what you said. Unfortunately, to a degree, is that element of that supremacy. But I don't know. I have a good friend of mine. He reminded me. He said, Mario, no. It's not. They want you to think it's about color and ethnicity, but it's just class war. It's just power. It's just.
I can see that too.
Yeah.
I think it's a mix of both.
It's just a power struggle. It's just a power thing. You need to be kept down. We have all the money, and by the way, they have all more money now than ever. They stole all the money. During the pandemic, the billionaires gained an additional $1.7 trillion into their own pockets. Instead of helping a world crisis. Instead of spending the billionaires of the world, which are the Western billionaires, instead of helping the world during the world crisis pandemic, which was a nightmare for the whole world, instead of using their billions to help the world, they actually made an additional $1.7 trillion for themselves during the pandemic. That's how much the billionaires care about the world.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
You make a great point because it's also important to remember the animus that at least our ruling class wants us to have of China is rooted in the class war as well. There's a lot of different layers on where you can analyze.
It's capability. It's just capability. You know, is China a threat to the West? Hell yes. But it's already over. You know, maybe this is another thing I wanted to say today, that if we're going to leave. If I leave the show, leave our viewers with a couple of powerful messages. The first one I already said: China is now the largest, safe, stable, successful, capable, civil, normal, and peaceful country on the planet. Just write that down. Okay. The second thing is to say that China really did it in peace. You got to understand that. You got to understand that they are the first global superpower.
That's a big point.
It's a huge point. Europe became the superpower of the world via violence. America then became the superpower of the world via massive amounts of violence. China is the first country in 7 centuries.
That's such a mind-blowing stat.
Yeah, pause,
I need to use that more. That's a great point.
Pause. Right. China is the first country in 7 centuries to become a global superpower without attacking, bombing, or taking over any other nation and killing their civilians.
Yeah, and that's why it's even more absurd that people will view them hostile, because Xi has made the point, and China made the point, that they don't even want to impose their ideology on the world, which is the exact opposite of the West. Because if you are living somewhere else and you view the capitalist model as something that is undesirable, then of course America is a threat, because the whole goal of the Cold War and the capitalist mindset, you can argue for much longer, but let's keep it simple, for the last few decades, is to impose itself on countries who disagree with the capitalist mode of production. We will overthrow socialist countries.
Constantly.
Yeah, so the idea is that Xi doesn't even want to do that. So let's say you love capitalism. Like, why would the rise of China even threaten you? Because Xi's like, I don't give a fuck if you're capitalist or not. We're going to do our socialist thing where 68% of GDP is state-owned companies. We're going to do our fucking thing here. But we can do your thing.
We're making a deal. The United States and the European countries, through the IMF and the world, whatever other fund, these big fancy names that we were raised to respect and think they were doing good things all over the world for the poor people. The poor people, and on the African continent in particular. And what we find out was in the story of Belgium and the mines and the United States, and they had a century to build up in cooperative way, to build up and modernize Africa, and they chose not to do that. They chose to exploit instead. Now China's gone down there, and what has China done that over the last century the United States and all these other European countries could have done? Okay, and which is what China's gone down there and say, well, we just want to make deals with you. We don't want your place to become Chinese. And what is the Chinese version of making deals? The Chinese version of making deals is, well, what is the record of what China's done down in Africa? They build roads, bridges, ports, hospitals, schools, train, rail, subways. That's it. They just build stuff.
And
China builds
all the time.
China builds and the West bombs.
Yes.
It's just that simple. China builds and the West bombs. China builds and the West bombs. And then, so they got to turn around and lie to you. Got to, this word, what's the word? Gaslight? They gaslight everybody. Oh no, China's bad, when they're the ones that are bad. And this is the truth, and you know it, and I know it. And it's not even a discussion. We just know it. We just know it.
Yep.
It's out. It's out.
Yep. This is a very enjoyable conversation, Mario. There are 2 things I want to quickly ask you before we wrap up here.
Yeah, let's go into some detail. Other things. Yeah, we know the main issues.
Yeah.
Anything else in particular you would like to ask? I'd love to answer you.
Yeah, for sure. I want to pick your brain on 2 things I've seen you written about. This is a great X article that you wrote about how Trump isolated the warmongering Europeans. And I explained many times on RBN that Trump is washing his hands clean with the Ukraine failed proxy war, something that he helped started. And this is a recalibration of the empire. It's not like he opposes like war, suffering, death, imperialism in general. He's like, oh man, this was a bad decision. But the reactions of the Europeans, this is why I found this article that you wrote very interesting. The Europeans are given this amazing off-ramp. Like, this is a failed war. They get this off-ramp where they can just blame Trump in the United States, but they are fighting Trump tooth and nail. They have a BlackRock prime minister in Germany who essentially said, we got to start our own European army now so we can wage war. But anyway, I need to shut up. I want to get your thoughts on this, because you can pretty much sum up the article and what you mean by the warmongering European leaders who want more bloodshed. Feel free to speak your mind on this. I would love to hear your expertise and some of this great article. Make sure you guys follow Mario, CounterPoint China. He writes these
on Twitter and on Twitter and on Substack. CounterPointChina.substack.com is my newsletter, and then my Twitter account, and that's the two places where you can find me.
Right here.
I was blown away. I like yourself. I was blown away by this. I couldn't believe that you get to the end of the Ukraine war, and it's obvious, and Trump's looking for an off-ramp that doesn't embarrass the United States. I mean, when the United States they went into Afghanistan. They didn't go into Afghanistan to win anything. They went into Afghanistan to possess Afghanistan like a 51st state, and they installed a military-based 51st state. I mean, that's what Afghanistan was. It was there to launder money. It existed as an extension of American sovereign property. They took it over, just like they took over the Syrian oil fields. I mean, this is all just about power, control, and resources, and nothing else. And for example, the poppy fields of Afghanistan magically stopped the day that the Americans left. It's just incredible, right? So it was an installed military-industrial complex into Afghanistan, and then the Ukraine war began. And nobody explains it better than Jeffrey Sachs. He's the hero of the day. God bless that man. Jeffrey Sachs explains it very well, that the United States caused and created the COVID pandemic to the world. And the United States caused and started the Ukraine war in 2014 when they did the regime change with Victoria Nuland in 2014. Period. That's what they did. They went against what at the time Gorbachev was told, which was, NATO, stay off my border. Could you imagine if China put some military on the border of Mexico of the United States? Just stay away. We just all you got to do is stay away. We don't want trouble. Stay away from our border. That's all.
Kind of asked me that.
Right. So they started the war. And then they lost the war. Do you realize the United States has lost every war?
Yeah.
They've lost them all. They lost. So the point's not war. The point's not to win. It's strategic. If I occupy you with war and ruin your country, it doesn't matter whether I win. I can get control. So it isn't I won the war. They've lost every war. They lost Korea, Vietnam. They've lost them all. Okay, and Afghanistan, and now here we are, and we knew it, we all knew it 2.5 years ago when they started it. We're like, oh man, they're starting another war. This time it's in Ukraine, and this time they're going to lose again. That was it. 1, 2, 3. They're starting another war. It's in Ukraine this time, and they're going to lose this one too. Check, check, check. And here we are, 2.5 years later. Check, check, check. Now Trump needs an off-ramp that won't embarrass them. They lost. They lost. They got to get out now. So he's got to play peacemaker. And this is the only respect in which we can agree with Trump. He says this stuff. He's right. Trump, I hate to say it, but Trump's right about a lot of things. He says a lot of stuff. When you ask Trump about war, he says he's consistent. Since the 90s, by the way, when Oprah Winfrey was interviewing him, he's like, we need to stop killing people. In this respect, we agree with Donald Trump, even though we don't agree with him on other things. And again, he won't apply that to Israel, but at least he's applying it to Ukraine. He's like, no, we need to stop killing people. And so only on that point. And I was amazed to find when Trump finally did what he said he was going to do. The presidents do that. He did what he's told the voters he was going to do, which is as quickly as possible get to peace in Ukraine. Now, there's a lot of other things he's not doing, but at least he's doing that. Fine, okay. So he's doing that. That's good. I was shocked when Zelensky lined up with the European leaders, and they're doubling down. You'd think they'd have learned after the World War I, World War II. Never again. The Nazi Holocaust was horrible. but they didn't learn. They didn't learn. And now the Zionist genocide of the Palestinians is every bit as bad as they themselves. Could you imagine if you yourself were genocided and then you would turn around and do that to another group of innocent people?
It's a death code.
They never learn, man. They never learn. So I was shocked. I was shocked to find that the EU is taking this stance, doubling down on blood, death, bloodshed, and violence. And by the way, it's run by 3 women. I don't get this at all.
Yeah,
I don't get it. It's like, when did women become warmongers? You know, it's von der Leyen, Baerbock, and then this other new lady. I mean, it's women. On top of everything else, it's women now that they got in charge, and they're shedding people's blood. At least before it was MacArthur and Patton, a couple of stud masculine mothers, son of bitch, leader generals. Now it's women.
Yeah.
They've really got the world twisted up into a perverted, sick, dark knot. Evil's winning. I'm sorry to say it.
And it's in their it was in their culture. It's in their past. It's the death code of the West that we talked about. And this is what shocks me. You know what I mean? This is why I've been a peace advocate ever since I was a teenager. I grew up during the war on terror. I was in middle school during the Iraq War. It was something always in my DNA because
Vietnam. For me, it was Vietnam when I was a kid. Same thing. I was just like, what are we doing? Why are we there killing people for nothing?
Yeah, and think about it, because the people in the West and the people in the West, they claim that we are this advanced society, and I studied the history of humanity. In a lot of ways, they're telling the truth. Like in terms of what it means to be a human right now, we are probably more blessed than ever than any point in the history of humanity. We made all these strides. We have all this technology coming out. We're supposed to have all this history and understanding, despite this era that we live in. Especially, it's even weirder when you look at the bourgeois. When you look at the ruling class, because they live these extremely comfortable lives, the lives that we never seen before. But despite how amazing life is going for them, despite how amazing life is going on a peaceful trajectory for society, they are willing to throw it all away. For what? The Donbass. The fucking Donbass. They want to throw it away to start World War III. They want to throw it away for Israel. It's a death code. How else can you describe it? You guys know what I'm making?
You know who's the top? I don't know if you know him or agree, but I feel the top expert on that subject, on the EU issues, what you just said, how they're a death cult, is Yanis Varoufakis, the Greek.
Hey Zoya, we got hit him up for sure.
He's the man. He's the man on that. He is truly the expert on that topic. He's just absolutely amazing. I see the word feminism on the screen for a different reason. Just so you know, there's no feminism in China, and there doesn't need to be. Just so you know that the feminist, all this Western feminist movement stuff, and they try to bring it into China as well. And I just go, feminism in China for what? Women are treated so well here. Simple. I mean, it's just that simple. Women are treated so well, and nobody questions how a woman's place in the world and a man's place in the world. So there's no need for feminism whatsoever here at all. And people don't know that either. You know,
and that's a very interesting point, because I made the point all the time how I call it Western feminism because that's what I know. I don't want to.
What it is.
I don't want to paint a broad brush on stuff I don't know about. So I know the Western liberal feminism. So that's what I'm talking about. It is actually a tool of imperialism. These are the same feminists.
It's another tool. It's just another tool to control. That's exactly what it's just another. Just like DEI was, just another tool to control.
Yep.
Very well said, just Mario. Another tool for power, where it's totally, ideologically speaking, the idea that China needs a feminist movement is ridiculous, and it's never become more than a bunch of these little fringe extremists who were trained by Western feminists to go into China and stir up, trouble. In the same way that the Uyghurs of Xinjiang, who were extremists, who were willing to kill people, they were brought out of China, sent into Afghanistan, and by the CIA and Taliban, trained and sent back into China to sow mayhem. And that's what was going on in Xinjiang. And it's just, without the violence, it's the same with the feminists. They get taught by Western feminists to go into China and just destabilize the society. And I'm sorry to say, or I'm happy to tell you, another last note is, I meant it when I said earlier, no doubt about it, China is a far more Christian country than the United States could ever be. There, in the city of Shenyang alone, you've got the Shenyang Catholic Cathedral. I've been going to China. I've been going to church here in China. I'm not the greatest Catholic in the world, but I have my deep faith in the divine nature of life. And I'm a Catholic, but I'm not the greatest Catholic in the world. I don't go to church every Sunday, but I got my deep faith. And I teach that and share that with my family. And last year here at the Catholic Church, our son got his first communion. And this past year, my wife, along with 50 other adults, was baptized into the church. I mean, and there's 18 other Catholic churches just in the city of Shenyang, right? And all you know is religion is oppressed. Religion is oppressed. The official State Department notice says that the Chinese government violently oppresses practice of faiths in China, and it's just like completely opposite of the truth.
Yeah,
and it's unbelievable. And that faith, that Christian faith, again goes back to family and tradition, and nothing is more important than the mother's role and place in the world, and as a wife in a marriage. And this is just normal. Nick, all we're discussing here, this is normal. This is how humanity is supposed to be. And here in China, the society is normal. All the crazy woke stuff going on in the West, all the division, the homeless kids that are so messed up because the families are broken up. This stuff exists in China about 99 times less. You know, it's just this is a normal society. Everybody here is normal. Everybody here knows what normal means. Nobody needs a lesson on normal. And it doesn't include feminism, and it doesn't include violence. Crime is extremely low here as well. It's extremely low. The number one thing every female foreigner who comes to China is like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I can go out on the street. I don't even think twice about walking out on the street 24 hours a day. Chinese, American females especially, or Western women, any foreigner, they can't believe it, because that's freedom. Freedom is freedom to live without looking over your shoulder. Okay.
Yeah, meanwhile,
I watched some kind of documentary the other day. I forget what the heck it was. And the guy was on his scooter going along the streets of Los Angeles and through Compton. And he's like, you know, a characteristic of life living in many, many neighborhoods of Los Angeles is that you're always looking over your shoulder to make sure there's not any bad people nearby. That I can't imagine living like that. Okay, I live here. It's 100% free. My child can go out. Son, here's the key. Go on your bike. Go out. I wouldn't worry for 1 second that a crime is going to occur. There is no.
We can't even let our children out to play anymore.
You can't even let your children out to play. Who's got the freedom? Who's got the freedom? You know, and it's the same for you know, I said it back in the beginning of the show. We didn't finish the thought, so let me go wrap around and finish it. I was saying to you about social media in China. How do you know, Mr. Foreigner who's never been in China, when you say to me that Chinese people can't criticize and don't criticize their government, and if they do, they get in trouble? Well, how do you know that? Well, because yeah, right. Wait a minute. Okay, so you're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and the combined total of users is, I don't know, whatever it is, 300 million, some kind of number. Okay, and if you come to China and you got Weibo and WeChat and Xiaohongshu and Toutiao and just several others, you got China social media, and the total number of users is over 1 billion. It's 5 times bigger than your social media echo space, and it's all in Mandarin, pal. It's in Mandarin, so you don't know nothing about the conversations and the comment section. You know, you think a comment section in America is in Twitter is big because it has 2,000 comments, and a comment section in a social media in China has 150,000 comments. So, and you think in those comments people aren't criticizing and saying what they want? Please don't make me laugh. Of course they are. Okay, it couldn't be more clear. So it's so great to come on your show and try to penetrate.
It was great, man.
It's so good that we're here to try to penetrate the minds of people who are willing to listen.
Yeah, it was great to have your expertise, and we definitely got to do this again. So many things we could dive into. I love how you mentioned, like, and this is what we as Marxists, I'm a Marxist and a socialist, we should advocate for the safety of our women. In the West, they view female liberation as your ability to create an OnlyFans or not. They think women in Iran are oppressed because they can't start an OnlyFans, and that's the breadth of their feminism. I want to create a society where they don't have to.
I should have the freedom. I should have the freedom to be immoral.
That's literally Western feminism in a nutshell. And I'm not judgmental. I'm very socially liberal in a lot of ways. I'm not judgmental, but that's what I've seen as the cancer of Western. That's how far they take it. Can you show your ass? Can you shake your ass? Are you free? Are you free to be sexually lit? That's it. They don't care about your material conditions. For example, just to get you, I don't mean to go on a rant, but the same people who want to advocate for regime change in Iran advocate for sanctions which starve families of Iran, which hurt Iranian women. Like, if you're supposed to stand for Iranian women, why are you supporting the sanctions of them?
Thank you.
I mean, so that's the failure of liberalism. How can you say you care about reproductive rights when you are cheering on Israel, forcing Palestinian women to have C-sections? So I noticed the contradictions, and I was a young, dumb liberal back in the day, and I used to be supportive, but I seen these contradictions and they turned me off. But with that thought, I'll give you last thought, Mario. Anything else you want to add? There was a great conversation.
Let's end it. Let's end it by offering the audience a survey. Okay, we're going to offer the audience a survey. Choice A, choice B. Here's your choice. I would like you to tell me, country A or country B has the following law. And I'd like to know which country that you would like to live in. Okay. Country A has a law that says no citizen is allowed to harass, slander, defame, abuse, or disturb any other citizen in public. You're not allowed to lie. Lie means slander and defamation. Okay. In public. Okay, it means when I go outside my apartment here and I go out on the street, okay, I am not allowed by law. I am not allowed to say in public, oh, my neighbor is this and that and this and that and this and that. That will disturb the community and disturb my neighbor. You're not allowed to harass and abuse and disturb and lie and slander about any other person out in public. It's not allowed. Do you want to live in that culture? Do you want to live in a society that has that law, or do you want to live in a society that doesn't have that law? That's the survey. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. And it is. And that's a real law. And guess what? That law actually still exists in the United States. They just stopped enforcing it. That's the bottom line. Do you know that China now is like the United States was back in the 50s? Was there graphic violence on the news in the United States in the 1950s? Nope. Did they show blood and guts? Absolutely not. Was it in the newspapers? Was it anywhere? No. And everybody in public, do you know back in the 1950s, my grandfather, God love him, my mom's father, my grandfather, before he left the house every day, put on a nice shirt and a tie and put on his jacket, would go out with his hat. And men would dress, nobody walked around. It's a different world. Nobody walked around in t-shirts and shorts and all this kind of thing. It's a different world now. People were polite and respectful and civilized. That's the word. People were civil. And it began with the media. The media, good evening. This is the news, and I'm Walter Cronkite. And it began with Walter Cronkite and 60 Minutes. And back then, where the news was just, this is the news. And Then it became, oh, we're going to compete with each other for advertising dollars. So now we need to make the news more edgy and attract people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to see is violent, and we have changed our policy. We're now posting a notice on the screen for 15 seconds to allow you to leave the room before we post this violence. And that's when it began. That's when it began. The disintegration of civility in Western society. The laws are still on the books, which is in public, which would be the media. That's public. Don't you think you're abusing me if I, in Twitter, have to watch blown up babies? Do you think I want to watch that shit? You think I want to see babies blown up? Okay. I don't want to see it. It's graphic. It's abuse. It's trauma. It's traumatizing. And reminding me that it's happening doesn't help me do a damn thing about it. It doesn't. I can't do anything about it. And yet, and then my 12-year-old son sees a blown up, my 8-year-old daughter. I don't have a daughter. I'm just saying I don't have an 8-year-old daughter. I have an older daughter. Sees the baby blown up. Doesn't that traumatize it? It's right there in front of social media. Media is out of control. So the society's out of control, and the government allows it. And they've done this on purpose. That's what they've done. They've done it on purpose. So that's the survey. Do you want to live in a society where you're not allowed, no one is allowed in public to harass and abuse and disturb and lie and defame you? And that's a normal law. And that's the law here in China. You can't go out in the public and stand there and criticize anybody because you can't lie about them. You can't, no one knows whether you're telling the truth or not. The truth is that you can't go out and disturb the community. I got a beef. I'm here in public. I got a beef. That Mr. Lee over there, he's a bad man, and da-da-da-da-da. And the police come along and say, excuse me, man, you're disturbing the neighborhood. Whatever beef you've got with Mr. Lee is none of our bit. This is the public. The serenity of the public, the civility and peace of the public. Grandma and grandpa and the grandkids are coming out the gate here to go for their evening walk, and you're out on the street disturbing them. You're not allowed to do that. It's that simple. So the needs of the people in the society, in the community, is more important than your individual freedom to disturb them, than to disturb the society. And if your individual freedom takes away everybody else's freedom, nobody's free. End of discussion. End of discussion. Yeah. And that's China. There's no oppression here. It's a bunch of shit. There's none. It's just not here. Okay. Uyghurs aren't being genocided. Taiwan is not being threatened. Women are treated extremely well. There's no human rights abuses. There's no forced labor. Not just for anything and everything you believe that are all these narratives about China are 100% false. I've been here 25 years. I've seen everything. I've been invited to be speaking at 5-star government conferences, and I've sat in the chairs out in the villages with the locals who don't even speak the main language of the country. They only speak local dialect, and I sit there out in the countryside on little stools, drinking beer and eating local food. I know everything about this country, and I've written 3 books, and I have all my friends. We all share our information and knowledge. What I'm telling you is the absolute fact-based truth. That's it.
Very, very powerful rant to end the show. One thing I'll say is I think one of the symptoms of the violent society that we live here in the United States and in the West is a symptom of the sick, violent ruling class and the sick government. Well, what do you guys think is do you guys think it's a coincidence that America is the gun capital violence state of the world, and we just so happen to sponsor genocide, sponsor war? That the first reaction of the ruling class to solve a problem is always violence. Violence first. People protesting, engage in violence against them with the police state. Oh, we got a conflict with Russia, engage in violence. So the ruling class always engages in violence. So of course that passes down to the people. Meanwhile, to your point with China, China is a country that don't wage war, that is not engaging in genocide, that not funding
and that doesn't tolerate violence domestically against each other. It's like, no, in America, they're conditioning you to accept. Oh, violence is a normal part of life.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Violence is a normal part of life. Go about your business, but you're at risk, and that's just the way it is. Violence is a normal part of life, and that's how they've set up the society over there. And over here in Asia, it's not just China. It's not just China. It's Singapore, it's Malaysia, Thailand. Only violence in Thailand is from the extremists, right? And Malaysia. And, you know, whether they're Muslim or Christian, doesn't matter. Extremists are extremists. They're violent, but they're the exception. The societies are peaceful. Violence is not a normal part of society in Asia. It's not meant to be. It's not supposed to be. It's certainly not God's way of doing things, whether that's Jesus or Buddha or whoever you happen to follow or learn from it. Violence is not a normal part of society. Get that through your head. Well, it is where I live. Yep, it is. And that's the problem. It's not where I live. Where we are here, and the government message and the societal message is no, 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 no. To live in a peaceful society where you can go out and walk with your grandparents and your grandchildren, free from fear of being accosted in any way. That's normal life and normal society, and that's normal freedom. And that's what we have here in China. And it's just getting better and better. You know, in this conversation today, we didn't touch the achievements of China and where China's standing.
Yeah, we just scratching the surface, man.
There's so many things to talk about. You know, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the recession. We was going to talk about Syria. We have so much to talk about because we could easily all day. But
is there a recession? Okay, yeah, this is a good one. We need this. Is there a recession in China?
Yeah, we get on this. Go ahead.
Yes, there's a recession in China, but that's not bad. See, you think recession means all bad. Recession means all bad. Recession in China does not mean all bad, because half of the reason for the recession is a bit of low demand. That's definitely true. Okay, that's definitely true. And it's lingering damage from the pandemic, which drained middle-class households and put a lot of retail businesses out of business. And the lingering effects of that are still a bit recessionary in the economy. So to that degree, yes, it's negative and it's pressure and it's a bit recessionary and deflationary. But that's only half the story. Okay. In the West, in the United States, the recession that's coming is really 100% bad, because it's for all. There's recession and deflation for bad reasons and recession and deflation for good reasons. So here in China, it's only half the reasons are bad. Like I just said, yeah, demand is a bit soft. Yeah, people are on tight budgets. Yes. But the other side of the recession and deflation story is a miracle of productivity. Not only can China build a car as good as a Tesla, but they now build it in half the time and at half the price. So what China has done with its technological advancements, which includes everything from AI on down through all the robotics in the factories, they've increased in manufacturing. They've increased the quality of goods, whether it's a glasses case or a mug or a cup or a keyboard or the flip mobile phone, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Okay. The quality of goods produced in China is through the roof, and the cost of producing them is through the floor. So that's a massive increase in productivity. So if the price of phones is going down because of massive increases in quality and productivity, is that bad deflation? Hell no. That's wonderful. If households can go out now, and they can, and buy a car that seems to you as high quality as a Mercedes or a Tesla, okay, and can buy that, if a car can pure 100% electric with a 500-mile range and all the features in the world and such high quality materials, okay, and if that car can be purchased at a lower price than ever for only $20,000, you can't believe it. Is that good for society? Of course it is. So that's good deflation. That's not bad deflation. And that's what's happening here in China. Yeah, we got recession and deflation, but half of it is for very good reasons, for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons.
Very interesting, and appreciate having you on, Mario. We definitely gonna do this again because once again, we just scratching the surface. I could easily riff about the philosophical
We're going to
conversation.
do this all day long.
Yeah. So I had to bite my tongue. Let's do a hard stop here. I appreciate you coming on, Mario. Anything you want to
You're a gracious host for tolerating my going. Thank you so much, man.
Oh yeah, this is a very rant-friendly show. So make sure you guys check out CounterPoint China and his work on Substack. He writes great articles and he does great reporting on geopolitical issues. Once again, there's so much stuff we could have talked about today, but we'll say that for next time. Make sure you guys follow Mario. Tomorrow we have another banger, man. This has been a banger week, man. We got a post-duopoly show. Probably Nick at Night. I had the wrong graphic. Nick at Night. Post-duopoly show tomorrow. There's another Nick at Night show. So another banger. Please make sure you guys like, share. Make sure you still subscribe. We had Jody Brar on yesterday. And so, man, it's just a banger. Every single guest. We had Greg Stoker on Friday, Gorilla Podcast, Midwestern Marks. This is very honored to talk to all these brilliant people around the world. And we got another banger coming tomorrow. Oh, yeah, we got Maura Kimberly. The RBN Roundtable is back. Rome is back. Rome is fucking back. And we got the roundtable with Maura Kimberly joining me, Sabby Sabs, and James on Thursday. So, man, this is a very powerful week for RBN. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.